is going to take us to our next session, and that is going to be our first panel, and he is going to make it interesting. The virtual stage is over to you, Madhuji.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Ramachandranji. Thank you, Mr. Sanjay Gore. Thank you, the patient audience we have, the panelists. Hope the knowledge is shared in the morning with the two solo speakers, and we have embarked upon on our journey towards excellence of learning today once again. With this, now, while we are talking about the standalone session by Sanjay Goreji, Mr. Ramachandran, we move on to the teamwork now. And when we say teamwork, we have to agree to disagree also sometime. So here comes the soul basically of the event, how ISO standards can improve business resilience. We talk about BCM, crisis, risk, DR, and cyber resilience. There are three terms which starts with human resilience, organizational resilience, and business resilience. Who better than this panel can teach us about these key words? We have in this panel people who are representing industry working at ground level, and we have people speakers who are training them to tell them how to handle the ground level scenario. Now with these words, I would request my first panel. I would call upon Mr. Samir Makwana. He is the moderator for this. Samir is the director of enterprise business continuity, APAC, Pfizer, Mumbai. Then we have, you can say, the person who has actually taught about what BCM is in Asia or in country, Mr. Dheeraj Lal. Mr. Lal is Executive Director, Core Management Consulting, UAE and India. He is the one who is actually leading this BCM thought in the country and spread across the globe. He has been an author also, and he is an eminent personality in the BCM fraternity across the globe. Joined by Mr. Shabir Ali Murtaja. Shabir Ali again is a keynote speaker, he's an auditor, he's a trainer, he's a program manager, he's representing basically again a fraternity of BCM, and he's coming from Orido, Oman. He's joining us from Muscat, Oman. We have another gentleman, I say gentleman, Mr. Harsha Shastri, who has guided us actually. Mr. Harsha Shastri is a MBCI, is a MBCP, basically is a business continuity, organization and resilience. He keep on encouraging us through his postings over the social media. We learn a lot. He's an industry expert. We have Mr. Hatim Bilal joined us from Al Raji Bank, Riyadh. Again, a big name when it comes to knowledge sharing on BCM. So welcome, Mr. Bilal. And last not the least, we have Dr. Nitin Deshpande. He is the lead consultant, Dhyanpeeth Academy, Pune, India. So with this panel, I think we are going to really talk about the soul of this event today, the ISO standard, how they can improve the business resilience. Without taking much of the time, I welcome all of you, the first panel speakers, and I hand it over to Samir Makwana. Please take care. Over to you, Samir.
Thank you, Madhu, so much. Uh, the world today, friends, has been brimming with crisis. We have one crisis after the other, and the interesting or the significant aspect of these crises is that they unfold without giving us advance notice. We've been so busy last year, all of us, talking about the global pandemic because it has slapped us with a harsh reality that today crises and incidences do not respect the political boundaries of countries or discriminate between organizations. And therefore, in my view, unprecedented is basically inadequate to describe the last year. So it's only appropriate that all of us today pay more than the usual attention to this panel discussion because with these esteemed panel, we're going to talk about some real practical insights on how the knowledge of these ISO standards can really make us more resilient. We want to aspire to create a culture in our respective organizations where people start living and breathing business continuity. So how do we take this forward? Before we go into our panel discussion, I just want to thank the event for giving me the opportunity of moderating this esteemed panel because I've had the opportunity of interacting with each of them personally, and I can assure you as participants that you are going to definitely get some real practical gems to employ in your own organization. So we start our discussion, and why don't we ask Dheeraj to just unpack this concept of resiliency for us before we start?
Thanks, Samir. I hope the sound is clear.
Yes, Dheeraj, you're audible.
Great. Sounds good. So I'm going to share my screen. Thank you so much, Sohan, Madhu, Samir, everyone else on the panel, Hatem, Harsha. I guess we are all a great and a well-knit community and look forward to this session. Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just give me a second. Can you see it yet? Can you see the PPT yet?
No,
Not
sir.
Not yet? Okay. Okay, so let me just go back to basics.
Now we can see Dheeraj.
We can see it now, sir.
I would have rather not shown you all of this, but there is a bit of an issue in opening it, and I think we should be good now. Now is the PPT coming up?
Yes, still loading, I think.
Great. Got it?
And I think it's some delay in the loading. It's still trying to load.
Not yet?
Yeah, not yet.
Sorry about that.
Everyone, while Dheeraj brings it up, pay attention as he tries to unpack this concept of resiliency for us, especially since there's so much of fog of ambiguity that can sometimes surround these basic concepts. I'm sure his insights are going to really help us to get the correct view of resiliency. Over to you, Dheeraj.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So I've cost you a minute. Sorry about that. I have about 6 minutes, Samir.
Yes, Dheeraj.
Okay, great. So I'll go fast. So thanks very much, everyone. Quickly jumping into it. I'm not going to spend much time on my background or the company. Simple point, what is business continuity? And I'd rather take it from a personal perspective. Our reactions as human beings, as consumers. So this is what you don't want, that you need something pretty badly and you don't get it. Let's assume it's something you need urgently. For example, a duplicate SIM card, a phone, a printout, cash. Without that, you'll struggle. And you want it and they say, sorry, we're closed. And let's be clear that this is an entity that should have been open. So you went there with full plans. You said, great, I'll get this done. And suddenly you're down and now you're stuck. What do you do now? Reactions, frustration, anger, disappointment. They're supposed to be closed, open. How can they do this to me? Now you have to spend time and effort going somewhere else. Your whole program goes for a 6. They let you down. Would you perhaps even go back? There's a good chance you won't. Now you're really irritated. You're angry. They've screwed up your whole schedule. Never going back to this place again. I'm going to tell my friends about it. I'm going to put it on social media. This is what good organizations don't want people to do to them. So these are the consequences of business continuity. Now let's put this in a real life perspective. Real incident in the UK. There's a small line out here, not very clear. Most UK outlets closed after DHL supply deal fails to deliver. Let's assume it's a Friday evening in the UK or in India or in other, maybe the Middle East, it's a Thursday evening. Start of the weekend, we are all very happy. You like to go out with your kids for let's have a nice evening together. Kids are all excited. Last 2 days, oh, we'll go out and have KFC, da da da. And you reach KFC and KFC says closed. What's your reaction? What's your kid's reaction? Again, same, how could you do this to me? So what do you do then? You probably have to go somewhere else, which is not great. Importantly, in this case, it then starts hitting social media. So you're angry. Competitors get into the act. So Burger King is now making fun of you. Haha. It's out there on social media. People started contacting the police. The police said, what do we do about this? So a small incident like this is now getting blown all over. And remember, social media is global. So it's not a UK issue anymore. It's probably a global issue. People in other countries perhaps didn't go to KFC. 203 likes, 89 tweeting. And now it's 18,000 likes and 10,600 tweeting. What's that doing to KFC? What's that doing to their reputation? Why? Just because they did not put business continuity in place. Simple. Okay. Direct consequences on KFC, loss of revenues and profits, certainly. People went elsewhere. They've eaten the meal. That money is never coming back. Costs stay the same. Revenues are down. In fact, costs are up because you need to fix things. You need to probably do an advertising campaign. You may need to do some freebies just to lure people back and let them be clear that the problem is now over. Embarrassment, effort, reputation issues, cost and effort, seen as incompetent, non-professional. Probably what happens if the other supplier is better? If your kids had a better meal, would you ever go back to KFC again? You probably won't. So KFC may have lost permanent business. Could be fines, penalties, and other desirable actions in some industries, maybe not in KFC, but certainly in banking, financial services, insurance, stock exchange, often yes. In a truly competitive situation, you could have in fact closed. Logically, as we saw, revenues are down, costs are up. You will have a profitability issue. You will have a cash flow issue. We saw this in the World Trade Center scenario. There were 550 companies in the trade center on September 11th. 18 months later, 550 of them had gone out of business because they could not ensure continuity of their services. Traditionally, we said it won't happen. In the pandemic, now we realize it can happen. Things can go wrong. Simple. I've tried to keep this short, Samir. I know I cost you a bit of time, so trying to keep it on track. Bottom line, if you fail to ensure continuity of your business, certainly you'll suffer in the short term. There's a good chance you can suffer permanently. And that's the most unprofessional thing you can possibly do, that you've spent all your time and effort in making things happen. And due to lack of planning from a continuity perspective, it all goes waste. Simply unacceptable. We say the purpose of business is to be in business. What you don't want is that you allow a situation where after all of this, you lose that business on a temporary or a permanent basis. So with that, I'll stop. I think Q&A will probably be later, Samir. By all means, let's please hit me in the Q&A. Otherwise, write to me if you like. And I'll just take a minute, Samir, just to mention that we have another event coming up in March. So once we are done with this, don't want to intrude in this, I'll probably put it on the chat line, which is Global Heads, etc. So if anyone's interested in that, they can come in, but I don't want to cut into the time of this session. So over to you.
Thank you, Dheeraj. I think what we can really take home from your explanation of resiliency is that the purpose of business is to be in business. Anything that interrupts our business and can impact our immaculate reputation definitely causes our resiliency to get affected. And I like the point that you said, I'm sure all in the participants have appreciated it, that today the power of our speech is actually amplified by the use of social media. we have to be really cognizant of that. So resiliency can today, become a global issue as well. So very well done, Neeraj. Thank you for that. Now, with this knowledge of resiliency, it's only right that we ask, Shabir, how can we align this knowledge of resiliency into our respective industries? I know you are coming from our telecom sector. So tell us how we can align this information into our respective industries, because I know the principles of resiliency are going to remain uniform across industries.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me here, Samir. Well, from my industry perspective, yes, I think the best example is 2020, because this unexpected, uncertain pandemic, which put us in a situation that we never have been before, like at least my age, and I have some senior peoples here, but of course, but last 20 years or 30 years, that wasn't the case. So the most important thing, the challenge was not only business continuity, remaining the resilient in the market, right? That was the biggest challenge and which was focused at that moment. There was no clue about it, but eventually that most of us, like in the industry, will remain solvent, not only remaining the solvent and also ensuring that all the business targets to be met. So most importantly, like the before I just jump to the questions response immediately, I'll say start with as Mr. Lal has explained very well in example, that the most important thing for the business, not only remain close to intended objectives, it also remains to the main core of the business, like that's telco. We are providing services, and in the main services that you have to provide a connectivity. That imagine a situation that you are in a hospital and you don't have a connectivity, or you're at airport, or you have very critical situations that you need a connectivity. So earlier to pandemic, we were more focused upon business continuity, like business continuity, normally using the tools of business impact analysis, risk management, monitoring, and preventions through controls, and a flexibility. There was definitely a flexibility to adopt a change. But the last part, that these all tools remain as is, but the most important part, what was really came in the picture, at adaptability to accept the change. Because if you don't accept the change, you're never going to be surviving, right? So imagine, like, I'm still in a position now, I work from home from last 1 year, like most of the country here in I think it's one of the affected country in the region, and we are work from home, and we have still a lockdown. We have a partially, a closure of some family gathering or gathering entities. That's Samir, you're mute, right? You're currently mute. If you were saying something.
No, I wasn't saying.
Okay, fine. So the most important, like I'll just try to summarize it because of the time constraints from the use experiences from last 1 year, that the most important principles came on the table. That was adaptability to accept the change, and everything was revamp up. People are working from last 1 year from the home, away from the offices, even out of the country. They are connected, that adopting new technologies, that if you over the night, like, it wasn't easy to do it, but we start revamping up the policies. Everything was going on online. Like, if you need anything services, rather than you visiting any stores or you visiting any premises of the business, you was going online and getting the services. Even the new customers SIMs was get delivered through a courier services. And we went to the eSIMs approach. Like, eSIM is totally, it's not as easy to go with it because it has a dependency, or your predecessor is one of the handsets. So we get, anyway, other than eSIMs, the majority of services went online. So what I'm trying to summarize in a way, that flexibility to adaptability was the key in that case, in top of the normal business continuity tools from the BIA, risk analysis, controls, and monitoring. Now, resilience, we divide in 3 parts. Number 1, operational resilience, because you need to make sure that your operation up and running. Number 2, you talk about supply and chain resilience. And number 3, your information security risk, because everything is going online, that will be security threats. So as a wrapping up the answers, the success story was depend upon working on 3 areas: this operational resilience, supply chain resilience, and the last one, information security resilience. These all contributed towards a successful, seamless business and services for the end users. from my what do you call in last 1 year case study in regarding responding to the pandemic 2020. Over to you, Samir.
Yeah, thanks, Shabir. I think you have really driven home the point that there are three key things that we need to, ensure from a resiliency perspective we are doing in our industries, right? I'm sure, like we, even the other participants have made this copious note that operation resiliency, supply chain resiliency, information security are the key things we must do. And what I really appreciated you mentioning is that today we must have the flexibility to adapt to change. We can't have this rigid policies in place. So very well said. Now with that, it's only correct that we transition by asking, Dr. Nitin, how are all these pillars of resiliency really interconnected? We don't want to have this mindset that, we are going to work on one aspect of resiliency and not work on the other aspect. They all are interconnected. So Dr. Nitin, why don't you throw some light on the interconnections between all of these concepts of resiliency? Dr. Nitin, you're able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can see me as well as you can hear me?
Yes, I can see you and I can hear you as well. I'm sure everybody else can. So why don't you just help us to understand the sections between all these concepts of resiliency? We're talking about, availability, information security, cyber security. We don't want to think of these as individual concepts. They're all connected. Tell us how.
Right. Thank you, Samir. And I really appreciate the insight given by Dheeraj as well as Shabir before me. In my 6-7 minutes allotted to me, I would just touch upon 4 or 5 parameters. Essentially, I would start with a case study known to us in a brief Morgan Stanley case study, if you recall, and Dheeraj also made a mention of September 11, 2001. Morgan Stanley was having 2,700 employees in the South Tower of World Trade Center. When the first plane struck the North Tower at 8:46 a.m., Morgan started evacuation of their staff spread over 20 floors of the building only 1 minute later. And at 9:02 a.m., when the second plane hit the South Tower, the offices were evacuated. Now, how this was possible, something which is unthinkable. Why? Because Morgan had a similar experience in 1993 after the bombing, and their senior management had taken a clue from that, and they had a detailed set of escape procedures and they had tested them endlessly. The resilience they built in the organization saved thousands of employees and their lives. Now, this is where resilience that really comes from. Just now, both mentioned that 2020 had been a very grounding in every sense of the word. I would like to touch upon 2 aspects of business resilience. One from the employee point of view, because the first important pillar of business is obviously the employee. If the employees learn to approach a situation with acceptance, courage, and wisdom, they are able to face any unforeseen, unthinkable situation that they may come across with. The one which we had recently experienced was the pandemic. Can the employees find things to look forward to as a challenge? We had just now a quick survey where we said whether pandemic was an opportunity or was it a threat, and we all said that this was an opportunity. Can the employees recall their past successes and lead towards realistic goals? The goals may have to be changed because nowadays we say that the targets are constantly moving and they are no more fixed or like that. And finally, have a human approach in every dealing. If this is done, then the resilience on employee point, the first pillar of resilience, business resilience, can be addressed. For a resilient workplace, can we have essential support for mental well-being of employees? This is where the top management has to prove their worth, that whenever the people are shaken, whenever there is depression, whenever there are mental issues, people losing jobs and whatnot and whatnot, what kind of support the management is going to offer to their employees, how the shocks can be absorbed of such unforeseen events and still provide protection, and whether the organization has got ability to bounce back. The best example, the place which I represent, Pune, is Tata Motors, where my son is working. Tata Motors is in now full swing, and they have got the order books booked for next 1 year or so. This is how bouncing back or recovering from the shocks. Although the company was closed partially for 2.5 months, but now they have started working. So what I mean is, when we look at the pillars, do we know what business resilience mean to us? We should also know that natural disasters are not only the causes of disruptions to the business, and not only preparing emergency response plan is enough. For me, there are some pillars of business resilience besides operational and SCM and information security, which my earlier partner spoke. The first pillar is obviously, let us not isolate ourselves, and let us be together with all our business associations, because we are all sailing through same boat. Let us avoid helplessness and try to see some silver lining in the other side of the tunnel. Can we motivate and incentivize the goals of our team, departmental, individual, organizational? Can we create an environment where there is support extended to everybody? And can we create phases of resilience process? Number one, alert when the crisis appears. Number two, coping not by giving emotional responses and reactions. Number three, can we come up with action plan? Can we have some resilience to overcome adversity by leading example? And how do we capitalize on the experiences, and how do we build that in our organization? Very recently in Pune, Cosmos Bank had big issue of data theft and data security, and that was from an outside country. And in a span of 2 months, they were in a position to restore the faith of their customers, because people like you and me are having saving accounts and lockers and whatnots in the bank. Lastly, before I close, let me also bring you to the topic of our discussion, how ISO standards are going to bring resilience in the businesses. Yes, ISO, whether it is 9001, 14,000, or other standards which my friends discussed, Sanjay also spoke about it. Yes, they have got risk-based approach. Right from 2015 version, ISO is talking about risk-based approach, where it emphasizes assess the risk, address their risk through leadership issues, and then action should be taken to address the risk and opportunity. Risks can be avoided by, number one, taking them as opportunity, eliminating the source of the risk, changing the likelihood or consequences, sharing the risk, or retaining by informed decisions. Lastly, we were talking about pandemic. That is where we started. I can share with you case of Allbirds in March 2020. In response to COVID-19 pandemic, much of the world went into lockdown, and the impact was profound. While many businesses suffered, a few more were able to pivot their operations and thrive. Why? Because sustainable footwear company Allbirds was already in a good position to shift all their business offline to online when the pandemic hit. The impact on the business and its customers were minimal. Even the challenge of being unable to visit the shop physically was overcome by enabling visitors to talk to staff through online video channels. The company, with a healthy growth mindset, provided sufficient adaptability and resilience to tackle both immediate and long-term challenges. I think this is how ISO standards and employees and businesses can become resilient, come what may, whether there is a strain of corona or many more to come, which are unforeseen. Thank you very much for this. And if there are any questions, open.
Thanks, Nitin. I think we have really appreciated that insight where you said that, we need to follow a risk-based approach and create a culture where it is conducive for us to promote resiliency. Very well said. But, let me just expose you all to this incontrovertible truth that although we know so much about resiliency, we understand its importance, there are still, organizations that are flirting with indecision about having a resiliency-based, approach. And what happens is they, all these unchecked organizational norms, they insidiously create a culture where resiliency cannot survive. So, Hasib, why don't you tell us what is that one challenge that organizations face, one key challenge, and how we can overcome that so we don't have to face a struggle to promote resiliency in our organization? What's that one challenge according to you?
Yeah, one challenge according to me is obviously lies with the leadership of the organization, who are required to constantly update and upgrade themselves in terms of future businesses, which are going to be very, 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 very uncertain. Despite so many challenges to businesses now, the biggest challenge is the unforeseen tomorrow. How do we gear up for that?
Right.
How do we gear up for that?
Yeah, Hasib, this question now is for you. Just as Nitin said, what are your views? What is that one challenge that you think organizations are facing today, and how we can overcome that? Give us one tip.
Okay, thank you. The question is to me, right?
Yes, Hasib, now to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alvin, for this opportunity to be part of this panel and to discuss this very important topic. It's actually going back to the challenges facing business to be resilient. I think the most important challenge now is the complexity of the business themselves. And now businesses are spreading internationally, global business, and even business working locally. They work in and across the country. They may be having 30 branches or more. So business becoming very complex, and controlling this, the operation of these businesses is a real challenge. Okay, even in the business as usual, but definitely if any disruption happened, they will face so many issues in recovering back their minimum operation. So complexity of business is one of the major challenges in my perspective, and they can overcome that by, and I like what Dr. Nitin mentioned, the business should have a risk-based approach. So if they are following a risk-based perspective, they will take right decisions, when to extend, how to extend, and what are the risks, the foreseen and even the unforeseen things that they can assess it, and they take right decisions accordingly. So this is the main thing. The second challenge in my idea is the emerging technology. Emerging technologies now is posing a very, very high risk to businesses if it is not managed properly. It's like, for example, big data, Internet of Things, new technologies. So before implementing any new technology, you need to assess all the risks related to this technology, or it may impact your operation and definitely your resilience. Okay, so emerging technology is one, and again, if you are following a risk-based approach, you will definitely you will not avoid everything, but you will assess your risks that associated with these technologies. The third challenge, I believe, is the increasing cyber attacks. And now people connected across the world. Okay, we're not working in silos. So internet connecting everybody in the world. So this increases the attack vector. And if you don't have a good information security capability in terms of technology, skills, tools, and everything, okay? And again, most important is the risk-based. Yeah, and information security is again about risk assessment. If you're not assessing your risk properly, you will get into troubles and you may face so many cyber attacks again. Okay, so cyber attacks and increasing vector of attack vectors is posing a huge challenge for organization to achieve their business resilience as planned. Okay, and yes,
so I think that is a. Go ahead.
The last point, the skills, the human skills, and this is mentioned by Dr. Nathan. I like that. The human skills. If you don't have the proper or the adequate human skills in terms of knowledge, experience, and so definitely you cannot achieve business resilience, because this is the main factor in business resilience. Okay, so human skills again is a challenge. So you should have a clear program for acquiring those those knowledge, skills, and retain. Also, you have a retention plan to retain the important or key persons in your organization. Okay, I think I took more than 7 minutes.
But never mind, just with the paucity of time, I must really wrap up what you said very well, that we must have a risk-based approach. And since we're facing so much of complexity in our business, it's important that in order for us to get a management buy-in, we must take facts, statistics to them and show them that this is the reason why we want to have a good, resilient organization. So risk-based approach and the knowledge of this ISO standards is really helpful. And finally, just to conclude, Harsha, why don't you tell us how all of this knowledge, knowledge of the challenges, knowledge of the intersections, knowledge of taking in our own industry, how all of this acts as a catalyst in creating a vibrant resiliency culture in our organization? How can we take this knowledge? What should we do?
Okay, so Samir, thank you for this turn to speak about the ISO and the resilience piece from my side. Now, just to introduce myself, basically an industry expert and knowledgeable person from the business continuity perspective. I do write a lot of articles on LinkedIn for various aspects of continuity moment insight. So all of you can probably connect and read. What I will cover right now and give you is I'll just upload a small presentation of 2 slides so that it becomes easy for everyone to understand. Just give me a minute, please.
Sure.
Can you see the slide?
Yes, we can see it now, Harsha.
Can you see the slides now?
Yes, Harsha, we can see it, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can see it.
So fundamentally, I just like to cover it in a very simple way for people to understand, in a very simple summarized form as a form of a story. ISO is a wonderful standard to align, and you can understand ISO with so many guidelines and methods of implementing a particular straightforward process in an organization. So a mnemonic to understand it more properly is I is for inclusiveness, S is for being synergized, and the O is for being O is the organization itself. Now, when we say inclusiveness, what we are looking out for is the 3 R's. That is the reliability, the repeatability, and the reproducibility. So unless and until something is not reliable, you would not like to go and do business with that particular organization. Unless and until you don't have a process which can repeat itself by multiple times by different types of people, it's not a good process. And until and unless it doesn't reproduce the same type of product that it needs to produce, you would not be in business and you would not be in a standardized. The second piece that I want to cover is about the story of the dice. So a dice is basically having The game of dice has basically a very simple game. It has 6 sides of the dice with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the rule is very simple. Unless and until you don't get a 6, you can't start the game. And in order to get a 6, you need to throw the dice. So it is actually a catch-22, which everybody is in, but it can be resolved by starting and doing some action. Now, how does this get aligned to an organization? The game of dice has a rule that I just spoke about. ISO also has rules. And the simple rule that it talks about is do what you write and write what you want to do. So don't write what you don't want to do and don't do what is not written. And that is what ISO is all about. And all of us should follow this basic principle in order that you are able to go through. Now, the second piece is about resilience. So when we are talking about resilience, the resilience is about being prepared, being capable of adapting to change and having a recovery at a very rapid pace. It also is talking about the ability to withstand and be able to recover and have business on a continuous basis. Now, various standards that you talk about is about 22301 2019 version. You have the 22316, that is the 2017 guideline, and it has around 20 management disciplines which it cuts across for building in organizations. The small story that I want to talk about here in order to understand resilience is about the father and the 4 sons who were called inside and given the 4 sticks to either break them or hold them. And the small story that talks about is when all the sticks are tied together, it's difficult to break. And it's very easy to break a single stick that has been given to you individually. So as much as it was a small narration of a father to their sons to be united, this story is very much associated to the organizational resilience, because in organizational resilience, everyone has to engage, everyone has to be strong, everything has to be inclusive, there has to be a reliable process, you need to be repeatable, you need to be reproducible, and you need to have the synergy to have the common goal and common objective met. So this is all that I want to say, and I want to summarize the ISO and the resilience piece for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Harsha. I think very beautifully you've given us the insight, and you said something very noteworthy, which is do what you write and write what you do. I think this, along with the risk-based approach, is definitely a good way to start creating a culture of resiliency. So indeed, a very insightful panel discussion. He has unpacked the concept for us. Shabir helped us to see how we can implement this concept in our industry. Nitin helps us to see how all these principles and components of resiliency are interconnected. We can't think of them in silos. Asim told us about the challenges, complex business, how to deal with it. And of course, Harsha summarized it very well. Have a good written, documented approach for business continuity. So I'm sure all of this is definitely helpful to us. Now, when we go as participants or organizations, and when we see something, good, resilient organization, a good practice, we won't only look at it with some aspirational gleam in our eyes, but we want to implement it. So in our own companies, we can create a culture, risk-based culture, where people live and breathe business continuity. Because friends, this is going to be a very strategic arsenal in order to build a resilient organization, the knowledge of ISO standards. So with that, I want to thank all the panelists, all the participants for your undivided attention. And now we'll open up for Q&A. So Elizabeth, do you have any questions for the panel? I think they will be very happy to answer.
Hi, Samir. If Madhuji is not chipping in, there are some questions out here. Just a second, the panel discussion has been.
Yeah, I am there. Yeah, I am there actually.
Yes, thank you,
Just
Madhuji.
just wanted Samir to finish it up actually. Samir, you can pick up some questions actually. And there is a question from one Mr. Mohan Patnaik, and he just want to know about how do any good rated employer have a balance on resource, organization, and business resilience? This is by Mohan Patnaik.
Right. So I think, Dheeraj, maybe you want to answer that question, how they can have a good balance between several components that help in resiliency.
So maybe just a quick suggestion also to those who are giving in questions. If you have them directed to a particular panelist, you have that option, and then of course within the panel, the appropriate person can answer. I guess Mohan, it's a question of competencies. In most cases, it makes sense to have defined the competencies that are required, and then it's a question of ensuring that those competencies are ideally met, or if there's a gap, then at least you know how far you are from that. So I would say that would help you ensure that you're able to then meet the specific requirement. That's at a very high level. Most standards also would define the expectation, not just the competency required, but what's to be achieved. So it's like Alice in Wonderland, kind of like a start point and an end point. Alice in Wonderland, there's a statement, I believe, that says, if you don't know where you want to go, you're not going to get there. So at least with a standard, you have clarity where you want to go through competencies or even a current state assessment. An assessment or a health check is a great way to know where you are. So this is where we are. This is what we want to, where we want to go. These are the resources we have, and these are how good or not good they are. This is what more needs to be done. So that's my quick and dirty, keeping in mind the time constraint.
Thank you, Mr. Dheeraj Lal, for this very crisp response to the question of Mohan. There is another very crisp question, actually. Samir, any one of you can answer. This is by Mr. Mohammed Habib, and he wants to know how to overcome a very particular scenario of risk management and chain management conflict, and how we can factorize the business continuity to make suppliers and customs and to connect the supplier as a blacklist one or the differentiation. So this risk management and change management conflict, how do we handle that? Samir.
So I think Asim can answer that question because we spoke about the challenges. So Asim, the question is how to overcome the challenge between risk management and supply chain management.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Hatem. Yeah.
I believe the risk management should facilitate a resilient supply chain management. Okay, they're not actually, they should be linked, and in the ideal case they shouldn't be in conflict, because the risk management, we talk about risk-based approach. So if you are following an effective risk-based approach, we should oversee all the supply chain risks. Okay, we should oversee all the supply chain risks and address them in a proper way, assess the risks and put the proper control. So in my perspective, there should not be if there is a conflict between risk management and supply chain, it means that there is a proper risk management framework in place. So we have to revisit our risk management framework, because it is at a higher level. It's at a higher level. Okay.
If I can just add to that, Hatem, I would say that risk. I would say that risk has to be proactive, and ideally through a proactive risk management system, in an ideal situation, we would have identified that there are some supply chain concerns, and that allows us to proactively put some solutions in place. So to me, risk should be done pretty much at the beginning, so that we can prevent those issues by knowing them in advance and putting in solutions and strategies in advance.
Yeah, very good addition, Neeraj. Yeah, in the same thought. Yes, risk management should be dominant.
Thank you, Hatem.
Yeah.
And Mr. Lal to contribute to this answer. Samir, I have got another question. Maybe we'll take two more questions. One question is, then I have some question. As an audience, I will be asking one question, not as a moderator or not this thing. So this comes from Mr. Sanjay Gore, and he wants to have opinion. One of you can answer about this recent incident of NSE, the National Stock Exchange, just 2 days back, and which has impacted very badly. So your opinion on that, Samir? Anybody can answer. Maybe you or Mr. Shastri or something like that.
Certainly, but I think Shabbir being from the telecom industry, and I think he should be able to take this question on what happens when there is a telecom failure in affected one. Recently, we had a telecom failure with the NSE. So, what's your take on that? How can organizations be more resilient when it comes to service providers failing us?
Okay. Well, I've gone through this incident. Actually, still don't have much detail about it, but it reminds me an incident back in 2013 in the Gulf regions. I don't want to mention the name of the telco. It was a complete outage for the one telco service provider. I believe the same case for the NSE. And imagine like the whole services was totally disconnected. I'm not talking about data services, that just comes second priority. I'm coming to the voice services, because imagine that the people are totally who are only relying on the same telco service provider. They were out of sync, and there were no one's communication in between. There was a disconnectivity to the B2B customers. There's a disconnectivity to even the ATM machines, and even something a bit worse, that was the airport was also, the airport was only communicating to the planes through satellite communication channels. Their inland connectivity was disconnected. So the lesson learned from that case study, that every telco, they go with the DR solutions, IT DR solutions, right? They have active or active standby scenarios always in place. However, there was a not proper what you call BCP drill, that if something goes down, the passive or standby should take a traffic. That was the case that it didn't happen. There was an active standby scenario. Then when active went down, I mean the node was, just avoiding the terminology, let's say HSS. If it went down, then automatically the passive node has to, standby node has to take a traffic. Did it happen? The lesson learned from that case study, that when the telco, you develop your DR setups, it has to be robust and it has to be tested in a business as usual scenario. Like, so don't wait for the interruption to happen. You keep regularly conducting the BCP drills. That was not the case, was not happening. Another example in another telco almost 7 years back, again, the same durations. One of the Gulf operator, it has, we call a STP, went down. It's a charging system. So what happens? They say, okay, we don't want to interrupt the services. Let's make all calls free to the country. Like what international calls, local calls will be free. Unfortunately, someone announced on the radio channel that X operator has a free calls because of some outage ongoing. So we avoided that, not to have a service interruptions. But eventually, because of the voice free calls, people came across to the social media, and people started making calls, and we have a flooded by the traffic, and the system that was a standby also went down. So there's two lessons learned, which I believe could be taken from the summary from this one. The number one, for the lesson learned for the one of the telco, these are two different cases. The first lesson learned from the telco, that was don't rely on the DR. See, you have a DR, that you have invested a huge amount of money injected to establish a DR, but it has to be tested over the span of time. That's one thing. That's one lesson learned, and is being adopted in that organization. The second part, it's the information flow management. It's another case study which I have highlighted at free calls. Your DR was very active. The active node went down. The passive was taking traffic. However, your information flow was not secure, and eventually people came across and you flooded by traffic, and your second node also went down. So two things we came across. So I don't know, because I'm not in the same territory of India, a bit disconnected from that from last 20 years. So most probably it would be the same case. The DR was there, a bit of the telco should be there. Otherwise, as a regulatory will not be easy to handle with that. So this DR might not be tested, or maybe of information flow, it could be a case. That's my assumption, because I don't have the root cause analysis of that incidents. I hope did I answer the question?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Samir. Samir, before you wrap up the session, I, as an audience, wants to ask one question. It may look funny also, but I have the curiosity to ask this question. And this question is, I'm asking to you, Samir. You are a user actually. So, from the leadership point of view, there is a lot of hue and cry, even during pandemic or otherwise also, about the importance of ISO standards to maintain the business resilience or organization resilience or maintaining the business continuity or the recovery measures which we take. So what is your view? Is this ISO compliance is taken by the leadership as an ornamental thing, or they are really talking about the real value to be added, where we feel, I mean, where are we now? Exactly where are we? What is your opinion about it? Is a real value add or the ornamental add?
So I'm going to be, very clear. There are, earlier we used to all have this opinion, everybody will agree with me, that a few years back people always said that business continuity, ISO certification is the first thing we will do tomorrow. So everyone had this in their mind. It's my priority, but I will be doing it tomorrow. So earlier we used to, think the notion is going to be very ornamental. It will add value to us. But today, I think organizations have disabused themselves of this notion, and now it is seen as a value add. And thanks to the global pandemic, because people believe that when there is something documented, when there is a systematic standard dictating what you want to do, and when there is a watchdog, the regulators observing you very closely, I think certifications are not ornaments anymore, but they are actually adding value, because today even the certifications tell us very prescriptive way what we should do, what we should not do. So it's a good start to have, so that if we know where we want to reach, certifications surely help us. And it is we in this community, business resiliency, that have to create this crisis ready culture. If we only don't give the management the facts, the statistics, and scare them, then it's going to be an ornament. But if we tell them the benefits of it in practical terms, how it will benefit my organization. Currently, I don't have a crisis response plan. ISO standards dictate have a crisis response plan. When you show them what you don't have and how the standards are helping you to achieve that, then it is taken very seriously by the leadership. So we have to create that crisis ready culture for the management. Earlier, it was an ornament. Today, it is not an ornament. We have to take a lead in changing that perception.
Thank you so much, Samir. Thank you so much, Samir. So we have another now speaker waiting. So you kindly wrap up this session, and then we'll move on. Samir, over to you, Samir.
Thank you so much, all the panelists. I just want to wrap up by saying that the insights that we received today are absolutely second to none. And now I hope with all this knowledge, we will be able to take operational resiliency, ISO certifications. They will be considered as very strategic arsenal in our toolkit to build strong resiliency. Remember, at the end of this session, all of us have to go back to our organization and start working to create a culture where people live and breathe business continuity and resilience.
Thank you, Samir, for moderating it so well. Thank you all the esteemed panelists for contributing in this engaging session. It was very enriching, and I am sure the audience would have had a perfect recipe for learning the real soul. Again, I'll repeat the real soul on how ISO standards can improve business resilience. So thank you so much. It was a quality time, lot of learning.